Welcome to BDJ Daily Torah, a service of B'nai David Judaic Congregation in Los Angeles. Here is Assistant Rabbi David Stein.
We'll talk a little more tonight about the kind of discussion we were having about the conceptual issues we were discussing about Hashavat Avodah, one of the mitzvot that's discussed in Parsha this week. And kind of the question we were exploring is whether Hashavat Avodah is kind of this global obligation that is really related to prevention of loss for other people, or if it's specific to a chefza, if it's specific to the return of lost objects, and only lost object. When you have a lost object, my mitzvah pertains to the object itself, and its designation is something that's lost. But it's not actually a mitzvah that I'm performing that is more oriented towards the individual who's lost it. We talked last night about how this might actually play out to the question of whether prevention of loss is included within the mitzvah of Hashavat Avodah. If it's really about the individual and not ensuring that individuals that we're in society with are not experiencing loss, then prevention would be just as much part of that as returning an object that they've lost. But if the mitzvah Hashavat Avodah is really specific only to things that are lost, only items that have status of being lost can trigger a mitzvah of Hashavat Avodah, so then prevention is a different category. It wouldn't fall under the rubric of Hashavat Avodah. So there's a couple other implications for this question as well. So the first one is, at what point do I become obligated in the mitzvah of Hashavat Avodah? So is it the moment that I notice that there is a loss? So for example, I see something that is a lost object, or do I only become obligated once I actually pick up something? So I see something on the ground, and well, if I see it, but I kind of walk past it, maybe I don't actually have a chiyuv, but only if I pick it up, then my obligation is triggered. So how might this relate to our conceptual question? If the mitzvah Hashavat Avodah is really about preventing loss, so does it matter if I've actually picked it up or not? What should trigger my obligation to return this item? Should be seeing it. Right? As soon as I notice that there's a loss, doesn't matter if it's in my possession or not, doesn't matter if I picked it up or not. If I notice that someone has lost something, if the whole purpose of this is to prevent loss for people, so as soon as I notice something, so I see it, then immediately I'm obligated to do that. I can't walk past it. But if the mitzvah is really just about the object itself, the return of the object itself, so it may not really be about preventing loss. It may only be that I have the obligation once it comes into my possession, once I have control over it. This actually really has important implications in figuring out whether someone is exempt from Hashavat Avodah. So the Gemara talks about somebody who is, it's not really maybe a zakein, someone who's elderly, and they shouldn't have to go to the trouble of returning a lost object. Well, if the object, if I'm triggered, if the obligation to return the object is incumbent upon me as soon as I see it, so you could have such a situation where I see it, but nevertheless, because the person's elderly or it's not appropriate for him to have to go to the trouble to return it, so okay, they'd be exempt from it. But if the whole obligation only begins once they pick it up to begin with, so we wouldn't really have this category, because the person who is say too old to return it, you wouldn't have to speak of them being exempt from this law. They never became obligated in the first place. They never picked it up in the first place. Okay, one other interesting one is whether the mitzvah includes all of the things that you have to do to return objects. So let's say I find something in the street. So is publicizing that I found it, publicizing it, the Avodah, is that part of the mitzvah? Or is that just the step to the actual return? What constitutes the mitzvah? Is it the actual return of the lost object so that it's no longer lost? Or all the things that I have to do along the way to return that? What is the actual mitzvah defined as? So again, kind of depends on this the question of what the mitzvah is oriented towards. The mitzvah is oriented entirely towards the making of a lost object not lost anymore, then the only mitzvah is when I deposit it back to its owner. But if the obligation is really about the things that I do for other people, the things that I do to make sure that people that I'm in community with, that I'm in society with, don't lose things and don't suffer financial loss, then every step along the way that I take, so picking it up, finding it, publicizing it, going to the trouble to drive over to the person's house, all of those steps would actually be part of the mitzvah as well. And so again, kind of this, it kind of forces us to kind of figure out what exactly is this mitzvah? What are its parameters? What does it pertain to? And that kind of really allows us to figure out kind of answering these questions of when I become obligated in it, what actually the scope of the mitzvah is, and so on and so forth.
You've been listening to BDJ Daily Torah, a service of B'nai David Judaic Congregation in Los Angeles. To learn more about our synagogue, visit bnaidavid.com.